Big old pines all have the same problem. Branches are very long and have very little foliage at the base. That leaves the trunk line bare and it is difficult to style. Now to fix this, of course, you can use a wire and you can twist and turn all these branches up so that they come very close to the trunk. But this looks like a spaghetti tree. Now how do you deal with this? What if I told you there is a method to get foliage right there, or right there, without depending on backbudding? Because that is the other problem. Pines typically are poor backbudders. This really is the moment. If this has fused properly, this will not be a problem. Now, over 2 years ago, I started this video to show you how to fix this. Yes, it is a lengthy technique, but it works, it is reliable, and it is easy to perform. The method that I'm talking about is grafting. And I'm not talking about scion grafting, where you clip a branch, you cut, and you put the clip branch in and you hope that they fuse. No, I am talking about approach grafting. Now, approach grafting knows a number of simple steps. You can do them. I will explain them later in this video, but first let's go back 2 years. And once we get back, I'll show you what the branch looks like now, about 1.5 months after separating. But let's go back 2 years. This is a nice old pine, which I got from a grower's field 2 years ago. And it has been in this pot. I'm going to graft some new branches near the attachment of the current branches at the trunk. For this I have parafilm, a freshly sharpened and disinfected knife, and a bit of wire. That's pretty much all we need. It's very mid-winter, January, and after I do this I am going to have to protect this tree from the frost. So I'm going to use an approach graft because it is easier and less prone to problems. And for this I'm going to use this very long whip as a donor. I'm going to create a groove here at the bottom of the branch. I'm going to slide this one in the groove, and then I'm going to wrap the whole thing up with parafilm. One, two, three, 4 approach grafts put in place. This is now going to go in a space where it doesn't get any more frost. So if there's any frost, this goes into the shed or into the greenhouse. And in spring we'll see where these still swell. They should, because I haven't done anything major to the scions, and we'll let them grow for the season. It's early summer, And all the grafted branches are still alive, and they're actually starting to push quite nicely. This one as well. Here at the bottom, this one is pushing. This one here on top is also pushing. And in fact, this tree I'm letting grow quite substantially. I'm letting this push enormously. I've not removed many candles. I've just looked out for the health of this tree. For now, looks healthy, looks good, growing well. So we're now in early summer. It's been dry for about 6 weeks, but next week we expect lots of rain, humid air. So what I'm going to do now is go through the tree, and here you can see these needles. They're brown, they're about to fall off. They've died off because of fungal infections. So I'm going to remove all the old needles, and this really is not good for backbudding on this tree, but it is good for long-term health. And I've not been able to find a proper fungicide against this disease. So this is the way that I'm tackling it on this tree. Early summer, I remove them. There's one there, there, and in the bottom there. All of them are growing quite well. I'm going to leave them alone. Right, we're in the middle of summer, and now I'm going to try and see what I can do to get some backbuds here. What you can tell is I've left all the candles on this year, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all the middle candles, pruning everything back to 2. And then the next step that we're going to take, healthy sprouts like this, I'm just going to halve them. So I might remove 1/3 or more of all the foliage. I do this now because I expect the tree to create either new buds here at the ends in the needles, or if I'm lucky and there's lots of sun, I'll get a few buds here on the inside, allowing me next year to prune back even more drastically. So all the sprouts I'm just going to go through, prune back everything to a few centimeters, removing the strongest tips. If there's any old needles that I haven't removed yet, because I've been a little bit sloppy lately with my trees, I'm also going to remove those, because I said I don't want this fungal infection to spread more than need to, and prune this one back as well. Let's see whether this gives me a nice backbudding response over the rest of the year. Now down here is one of the grafts connected here on top, and of course here I only remove the old needles that might be infected with fungi. I'm not removing any growing tips, any extending growth, no side branches. This can just create a nice dense whirl of needles, because this needs to fatten up, connect to the branch here, so that later on this whole branch can go, and this will create my lower pad. Right, September, and what you can see here now is that there is some fusion between the graft and the plant I'm grafting upon. You see also that the grafting foil that I used has started to deteriorate and actually doesn't serve a function at all anymore. And I'm also going to remove now the piece of wire that keeps this in place, just to check whether there is actually fusion going on. And then I might put a little bit of wire back on, just to provide stability in case of winter storms. And at the same time it will act as a sort of a tourniquet. It will reduce the subflow from this branch into the grafted section. This is delicate work. Be very, very careful, because even if there is fusion going on, it is still not a very strong connection. And here we see the same thing. If I now move this branch, the donor side doesn't actually move at all. I'm not going to push all that hard because it is still weak. Let me attach a tourniquet here as well. And I'm going to put it on the entrance side of the graft. Just like that. Here I didn't put the graft deep enough. You can see that's now laying on top rather than in the branch. But by the looks of things, it has indeed merged as well. Let's tighten this and see whether we can restrict the subflow again from the donor into the ceon, so that this connection between the grafted branch and the main branch strengthens. So this is a very well established branch now. The graft seems to have taken. You can see the fusion here quite clearly. So that means that now I have to weaken the connection from the donor side. And the way to do that is to, with a scissor or with an old or with a cutter, you just slowly start removing part of the connection here on this side. So I'm just scraping off a little bit of the bark and the wood. This is enough to reduce the sap flow from the donor, and this way it will rely more on this connection than here on this connection. This I'll do now, and in a couple of months I'll remove another half, which means that by late spring I can probably just clip it off completely. Did you know that subscribing and hitting the like button or leaving a comment helps YouTube recognize that this is a video that you liked, and with that share it to more people? It would help me if you do that. Just to increase sap flow and basically reduce stresses in the tree, I'm pruning back all this growth of this year. Normally I'd wait another couple of months, but it is nice and cool. I thought this might be a good time to separate the grafts. So here I'm pruning back to 2s as usual, shortening long candles, basically thinning out the whole tree as usual. Well, not completely like normal. I've removed maybe half of the foliage. I now have a bucket full, and the reason is I still hope for backbudding along these branches to really get a more compact tree. I am not yet in the process of creating the branches that I want to use for styling, but of course I look for good bifurcation so that if I am going to use this later on, I can. What you can tell here now is that the bark really has fused between the grafted branch and the original branch, and I've removed some of the bark here earlier this season. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to thin out the foliage on the grafted branch. This reduces, of course, the sap flow needed. Just like that. Maybe a little bit more here as well. And there. And then I think it is time to take the plunge. Also here I'm going to remove some of the foliage, because what I'm hoping for, this is the donor side, right? And then this is where I thinned it out last fall. Here is the nice fusion between the old and the new branch. And what I hope for is that if I clip it here, this branch will also stay alive. Now this is a bit tricky. Let's see whether this causes any problems or not. This really is the moment. If this has fused properly, this will not be a problem. And the same here, right? So welcome back. This is the branch that I grafted on, and here's the other side of that branch. And I'm not going to move it too much because it is still gentle, but you can see here the graft with the donor side, which actually also stayed green. I'm very happy. This can happen. Sap flow can occur in multi directions, and sometimes it just grabs. And here's the other side, and this also looks really, really happy and healthy. And then if I move a little bit lower down, this is of course the donated branch, and if you look at it, it looks perfectly happy. I don't see any sign of browning or deterioration, so I also am quite confident this has taken. We've had a week of heat wave since cutting it. This is a good sign. I think all my grafts have taken in this case. This was Jelle, growing bonsai. See you next time.